All right, my name is Shane Drake, and I'm going to try to quickly break down what I think has happened with the economy, the markets, global supply, energy, the sun, everything. Kind of this big amalgam, right? So when you're looking at this chart, don't look at it like it's there's some data that I stole this offline or something like this. This is all out of my head, and I hope that you're willing to kind of sit through this and analyze this with me to see if you come to the same conclusions, or if you are. If you disagree with me, let me know. But this is what I see. Last year, and I guess the last decade, we've been facing a lot of influential factors on our global economy. It seems like there's a lot of bad actors in there who want to get their hands in and kind of mold our economy, our supply, and everything to suit them. And by suit them, I mean make us reliant on them. Whatever you may think of that, it's caused a lot of different weird anomalies, and people want to attribute it to this person, this group, this nation, this leader, whatever. At the end of the day, it's way more complex than that, because it's like a pot of gold, okay? That's what the global economy is. It's a giant pot of gold, and the average person will never even get close enough to see it. But the people who are close enough to reach in, you've got like 50 people around the globe, billionaires and leaders and stuff like that, who are reaching in and trying to get as much as they can. They're trying to extract as much as they can out of this global supply, this global economy. And, it's caused a lot of issues. So we had the pipeline shutdown and this increasing EPA regulations on our fossil fuel supply, right? They want to go and move us to solar and wind, and I really think that's what it is. So we had pipelines shut down, we've had more restrictions and regulations, and that's caused our fossil fuel demand to exceed our supply, right? You've got more being taken out of our supply, fossil fuel supply, than is being put back in, which in a sense causes inflation, right? You've got a higher demand than you have supply. That's going to cause inflation. That's just how that works. Now, what I think that really is just certain groups, leaders, or whatever, they just want to move us towards renewables, right? Solar, wind, and I don't think we're ready for that yet. I don't think that those technological advancements are quite to the point where we're able to get off of fossil fuels and start replacing it with renewables. Maybe we're there, but at the end of the day, really, what we see is just a higher price at the pump. We've also had record droughts, Midwest, all around the country. It seems like everywhere where they produce crops, everywhere where they need the water, they don't have it. And everywhere where they don't need the water, they've got it. And we've also seen, like in Africa and stuff like that, we've had some locusts emerging, right? This huge cicadas coming out, right? And that does huge damage to crops. So we've had locusts, cicadas, and drought. These three things combined has caused a huge global crop shortage. I've heard some places talking about only having 1/5 of their harvest. That's not good, because we can talk about consumer electronics and fossil fuels and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, the only real thing that you need to survive is food. So if we don't have it, and we're relying on the global markets, not ourselves now, to produce this food, well, you can see where that goes. At the same time, we've had this epic workforce shortage, whether it be because they're paying people to stay home or people have lost their jobs, right? We have essentially had an epic number of people who don't want to go back to work, don't have a place to go back to work, and, it's just caused a huge conundrum, right? Because if you have some government entities completely remaining open, having their markets completely remain open, well, that's going to suck in all the workforce from places that are completely closed down, right? You've got to make money. And if you're not supported financially or economically or with food or whatever, you're going to go to where those things are supported. So we've had a huge workforce shortage, and this has caused issues with shipping, harvest, etc. You name it. There's so many areas affected when you don't have people to pick the crops or to package up the goods or sell the goods even. So we've seen this across the globe. Low supply plus high demand equals inflation. That's just how it works, right? We've got this huge demand because our economy was going up and working so well? Well, prosperity, extra money in your pockets, you're going to spend it. But if the whole market's got a downturn and they're not able to, and the country says you can't go to the factory to produce these parts, even if it's just for a week, these hiccups in the system exploit and show where the weakest links in this whole setup is. So if one link breaks, it's like the whole thing falls apart. And that's kind of what we're experiencing right now, as the whole entire supply chain was way more fragile than we could have ever expected as a people. Maybe they knew this, the people who are in charge of things, maybe they didn't. We're also experiencing solar forcing through this grand solar minimum. Now, if you don't pay attention to the sun or the Earth's magnetic field, essentially all I can say is the sun's going to be playing a bigger factor in the environment. It's going to be playing a huge factor in crops, droughts, and the shape and the way our planet functions. The sun has a solar cycle and the Earth has a magnetic field cycle. And when these two things cross, it could be bad. And that's kind of where we're at. So, get ready for those climate effects from the sun. They're going to call it all sorts of things, man-made, global warming, and all sorts of stuff. And I'm not saying that those things don't play a factor at all either. I'm just saying that for the most part, the number one influence on our climate is the sun. And the sun is going through some crazy stuff right now. And the Earth's magnetic field, which protects us from the sun, is going through some crazy stuff right now. These things combined cause rolling blackouts. We saw that one in Texas, and we see it every year, right? Well, you've got hotter climate that creates more energy usage, AC machines, more people home, more people working from home. The energy consumption is through the roof. And this is causing rolling blackouts. So the drought plus the solar, it's equaling that a lot of these people in these Midwestern areas that rely on dam reserves, like those hydro dams, well, those are at half capacity because they've experienced record droughts. And it's evaporating faster than, they're expecting. This is going to cause not enough power for some of these entire regions. Some of these dams provide power to the entire, to 4 or 5 different cities. And they're saying they're going to have to pick 3 out of the 5 to send power to later this year. That's going to cause a lot of issues. That's going to cause a lot of people to say, why do I live in this area? Why am I here? How am I going to keep cool, We've also seen record riots and social unrest. They want to ignore it and say that a lot of this stuff was peaceful protests or whatever. At the end of the day, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. We did experience major riots. We did experience major social unrest. And this drove a lot of people out of the cities. Meanwhile, the Fed has been print money, and Trump stimulus, and then the next stimulus, and the infrastructure, and the unemployment checks, and all of this stuff is trillions of dollars that weren't in the money supply this whole entire time, and now it's there. And really all that does is devalues your wealth, your assets, everything that you have, because you've got on one side the money supply and the other side the supply of goods, or what is out there in the market. It's not just supply, it's what's there. If you increase this number, well, the supply, what you have, those things get hit the worst because you lose value. That's just how economics work. So the rhetoric to defund the police caused a record number of police to quit. All of these things together, all of this economic strife, social unrest, riots, etc., caused a mass amount of people to flee the cities. Well, we had all this prosperity, extra money, blah, blah, blah. That caused people to flee the cities. Now everyone's buying out in the suburbs, causing a huge housing bubble, this big rush, right? People want to sell their homes for massive money. People want to buy homes because they don't want to be in the cities anymore. So it caused this huge rolling over effect of our economy. And now this giant bubble has been created where the housing market is as big as it could possibly be. Well, once that starts to tumble down, well, if you bought a house for $750,000 that just a year ago was worth half that or less, you're going to be in a world of economic hurt trying to pay back those loans when the economy is doing a nosedive. So now that brings us to just yesterday, the eviction moratorium, right? They evict millions of people. Now that causes mass homelessness, and we can see with all these things combined, it could be a catastrophic. It could be catastrophic. So let's look at the economy. We had a really good demand, really good supply when Trump was in. Whatever you want to call it, if it was something that's been happening for a while, we had rising global supply and demand, and it was awesome. Then COVID started, right? That COVID start, when that started to pick up news and started to generate media, people started to close up. States started to close up. And that started the markets to close up. Well, for a lot of people, they had this huge prosperity. And for a long time after the COVID shutdowns began, they were able to still keep this money pumped into the system, which kind of kept us afloat for a while, right? A lot of people living on their savings, right? You're going to spend this money here. And that brought us to the first Trump stimulus. Trump gives us this stimulus, and you can see global supply was keeping up with global demand. But then, as things go down, guess what? People in the Philippines getting our money, people in third world countries getting our money, they need it way more than us, right? They can't live a week without a paycheck. They can't live a month without a paycheck. So these stores globally start closing down. You know, they've got to find new ways. You know, no longer are they going to make the widget for you that you buy on Amazon. They're going to start farming their own land or going to where the money is. Remember, money and workforce follow the demand, right? So if the demand here to here is a bunch of crap off Amazon and Walmart, this keeps this high for a while. But at this point, right after the stimulus hits, people are going to realize there ain't no money coming for a while. And the global demand, our demand, goes from Xboxes and PS5s to canned food, seeds, and basically the stuff that you need to stay alive. Well, during this period, all the people who were working in the fields, well, there's global crop shortages, there's record droughts, there's all of these factors pushing these people from the food market into the, the PS5 market and just the other stuff like that. But it's still a downturn. So people are moving away from what we need to what we don't need. Meanwhile, both of those things we have less of them than we had before. And then when we get this second stimulus bump right here, what do people buy? People buying the stuff that we don't have. People trying to buy canned food. People trying to buy solar equipment and all these things, because at this point, at this second Biden stimulus, there's all of this market uncertainty. We don't know what's coming. But it's the kick over the ledge, right? If they had just stayed out of the market from here on out, right, it might have come and leveled out as people moved back into the workforce, moved back into food markets, right? At this point, it was crucial for the Fed to stop printing money, for the federal government and the global governments to get the hell out of the markets at this point forward. But because Biden gave us all of this extra money, what it ended up doing was it was like a kickstart, right? I'm going to go out and buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. We go out and we buy all those things. So then the guy who's in, let's say the Philippines, and he's going from this place to this place to this place, he ain't at the shipping yard anymore. He's not at the widget factory anymore. And he don't care about our demand, our consumerism. They don't care about it. Guess what? They've got their own problems to figure out and work out. But we're a consumeristic market. Our whole entire nation is so non-self-sufficient that when these people are like, screw this, I've got to farm for my own family, provide for my own family. I'm going to go back to my home, the place that I was born, the village that I was born, or whatever. A lot of these workforces are going back to a more centralized economy because there's way less stability issues the smaller your economic market is. So all these people pull out of the global market. That causes the global supply to drop, and here we are. Except the problem is we're consumers. We all consume. That's all we do. We don't grow enough food for ourselves. We don't have enough supply to maintain our lifestyles. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means that the mass homelessness, the droughts, the lack of food, the lack of energy, the lack of power, all of these things are going to come to a head at some point. And people are going to have a mass awakening, and it's going to be tough. I think that things are really going to go into uncertain and very harsh times ahead. That's what I think. And if you don't see that, tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where my idea on how all this plays out or has played out is wrong, and I'll reassess it. But I'd love for you and the average person to get out there and to kind of look at these things yourself, try to figure them out yourself, and maybe come back to this video and tell me if you've seen the same things. Regardless, I think we're in for harsh times ahead, and I hope that everyone's been prepared, got canned food, got dry food, and is ready, because this uncertainty in this area right here, man, I really hope I'm wrong. And, for the sake of humanity, I hope I'm wrong. But tell me what you think. Shane Drake, I'm running for governor 2022. Seems a long ways off, especially with everything that we have going on in the world right now. And, yeah, I just hope everybody out there is prepared and paying attention. Take it easy.